Hey everyone, it's Irene from Bay Wellness Coaching. Today I'm really excited to have Christa on the call today. Christa has been practicing yoga for 12 years and teaching for about 10 years now. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how she got into yoga, what's changed during coronavirus. We'll talk a little bit about how she grows her practice while simultaneously supporting herself. So Christa, thanks again for being on the call today. If you'd want to share a little bit more about kind of what got you interested in practicing yoga.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to kind of chat about it. Love talking about yoga. So, my background, I was going through my undergrad just to kind of back it up a long time. My undergrad, and with hopes of graduating with a psychology degree and going into some sort of clinical therapy or just research. And after I graduated, I just kind of sat there with myself and was like, I don't really want to go diving into, excuse me, the real world quite yet. So I looked at just kind of my day to day and what I was really enjoying and what was helping my personal growth. And I had been practicing yoga. That's something that followed me like from my young teen years, through kind of doing all the sports and being an athlete as a kid. It's what kind of helped sustain all of the physical and mental things, from my childhood. And so when I graduated my undergrad, I was like, same. I still am tied to the practice of different styles of yoga I really enjoy, and that's what's kind of keeping me afloat. And so I wanted to provide that for other people. So I did a little bit of research, but then ultimately I just walked into the yoga studio one day that I had been practicing at, and I said, how do I become a yoga instructor? I just graduated college and I don't want to pick up my kind of HR job that I was offered earlier today, like literally. And they're like, great, one of our instructors actually just told us she's going to be leaving, and we were hoping to send one of our students to a teacher training. So it kind of serendipitously happened that way. And that was my first kind of initiation into teaching yoga. But I kind of used my practice from a young age to support just my physical body and just kind of have a balance, with my mental health as well throughout kind of changing, going from high school to college and then trying to just kind of mold myself into my young adult life. It was something that was really necessary, and I was really always grateful to have, found and to have practiced at a really young age, because I found that it was really, supplemental like to the rest of my life. So just kind of stuck with it and dove into the teaching side of it when I saw the opportunity open up.
Awesome. And I think a lot of people are familiar with taking like a yoga training class, or at least somewhat familiar. You have to fulfill a lot of hours of practice before you're able to do your certification. Do you think you could talk really lightly about the certification process?
Absolutely. And that's something I enjoy just kind of diving into one-on-one with yoga instructors or people who think they might want to go down that path, because yoga camp, yoga school is like the best times of my life. It's where I experienced a lot of personal growth, and knowing that there's so many different schools, there's so many different styles of practice out there, and they're deeply rooted into some traditions and, to some cultures too. So you don't really necessarily know what you're getting into when you just Google yoga certification process, right? And, there's a lot to kind of thumb through. So it's very dependent on what you're looking to get out of it, the style of practice that resonates with you at that time in your life. I would say it's very timing specific for people as well. And to be really honest with yourself of what you see yourself either wanting to absorb or wanting to help other people with, because it's very specific, it's very personal. And when it is that way, when it's something that you truly can resonate with, then it becomes something that's really useful in your life as an instructor or just personally. I encourage a lot of people to do teacher trainings, even if they don't want to teach, just because it opens your world, it opens your perspective, inwards, and then you can start to kind of plant those seeds elsewhere, in your everyday life for other people too. So yeah, so there's a lot to kind of go through. You can start by Googling it, or you can kind of start to ask instructors of classes that you really resonate with or really enjoy that style or kind of their background, and get a feel for what shaped their background and what shaped their methodology or philosophy. And from there, you can kind of start to weed out certain styles of practice that maybe like, nope, I don't really want to go down that route yet, or really want to dive into this style or this philosophy or this methodology, and just kind of feel out more or less what you're interested in and what you should start to kind of follow from there.
Gotcha. Thanks. That's really
Yeah.
insightful. Like after the process of being certified, like where do people go next? Like, a lot of people do personal training certifications, and I'm certified from NASM in personal training. A lot of people after that, they're like, oh, now I have a certification. Like, what do I do next? Like, do I apply at a gym? Do I try to find my own clients? Do I do like a mix of both? Like, how did you grow your yoga practice and kind of sustain yourself at the same time, given that, it's really expensive to live around here. So it's like really good to hear like how people support themselves while doing something that they really passionately believe in.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that. The certification process is kind of that first step, but then where do you go from there? I've kind of gone down that route with not only yoga certifications, but a lot of certifications, and you just are left with a lot of information and don't necessarily know how to implement it in the most efficient way. But so my advice for that is just to stay kind of always true to yourself, but stay curious as well. If there's other elements or other kind of things that can continue to sharpen your tool or sharpen your expertise a little bit closer and closer to something that you notice you're really wanting to offer, continue to get that education and learn from what all is out there, but then make it sustainable for you. I wouldn't throw all of your resources and all of your time into something that is going to leave you just really hoping for people to come to your classes, and really kind of just leaving it up to the marketing world to make sure you get a certain amount of reach or anything like that. I would say start small. Just start with offering maybe free classes just because you purely enjoy them, or you're going to be doing yoga, so might as well invite your friends, might as well invite your family, and then word of mouth, it kind of grows from there. And you can play around with different platforms and what's working for you and your population. But I wouldn't say like, throw it all out there, make sure you're kind of broke at the end of it, because that's going to equate to success. I don't think that that's necessarily true in the yoga world. I think the closer you can stay to it working for you and being really coming from a place that's true and aligns with your flow of your life more or less, than kind of trying to force something to happen or expect a lot of people to show up when sometimes everyone's busy, and that's what happens. So I would just say kind of staying true and not expecting like huge mass quantities of people to show up, and just enjoying like every single time you make it to your mat, whether that means you had 10 people come, whether it means you have one person. Each and every time it's a lesson. It's a gift to like have to sit and to learn from that time spent. So trying to make it sustainable, I would say, is just a matter of not not forcing tension around it. It's just like being okay with no matter what the outcome is, and enjoying the process. And so to answer your question more directly, to grow your following, I think it's kind of not about that in the beginning, in the way beginning. It's more or less like, can you be comfortable with what you're offering and continue to kind of grow as your own instructor? It's hard in the beginning to speak out loud in general. And nonetheless, with it changing with COVID times, you have to learn how to speak over video and also correct people in their anatomical positioning over a video. And you don't have these bodies around you to give these kind of innate cues that you can fire off normally. So it's a process, just like anything else. So giving yourself that time, but then allowing a lot of time for reflection of like what did work, what didn't work. Did you notice a lot of people showed up for this style of class because you genuinely enjoyed teaching it, or was it forced and you put a lot of resources and effort and it didn't amount to a lot? So trying to kind of put your feelers out, checking in, and then kind of reevaluating and resituating with what you're offering, what your classes are. Maybe try different platforms with different marketing techniques, more one-on-one, authentic interactions. A lot of times work, they go a long way. So just kind of reevaluating over time and being open to continuously growing in ways that you did not know is how I would give you that advice, to kind of stay keeping yourself afloat and enjoying the process during these changing times.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really nice that you touched up on how things have really changed during coronavirus. It's a lot harder to connect with people sometimes if you're not there in person and you don't get to like there's a lot of like subtle cues that you can pick up from people if you're there in person versus online. So it's definitely been a challenge. Kind of talking a little bit more about where people can find you. So you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
you're teaching online now. You have like one-on-one things. You also consult and coach other yoga instructors. Like, if people wanted to find you, where would they go?
Yeah, so right now you can find me mostly through my social media. So my Instagram handle is Yoga Christa, and that's CHRISTA. And on that, in my bio, I actually have a link to my Moxie page. So my Moxie page is where you can find kind of my virtual yoga studio, where I have class offerings, and then I also have the privates. And those privates are where I do a lot of the coaching or the consulting with other yoga instructors. So we talk anything about like philosophy or your techniques, your methodology, or just like life as a yoga instructor. So you can reserve those times with me as well. Or you can see my kind of class offerings side, which I have a couple of workshops on there. I have a class weekly, and then each class is recorded. Every workshop is recorded as well. And you kind of get that extra resource sent to you by coming to those classes. So the Moxie page is Moxie, MOXIE.XYZ, and that's /Yoga Christa. So that's my Moxie page. But otherwise, you can also reach out to me via email. I'm always happy to just kind of set some things up where it meets people, where it's best to meet and to interact.
Yeah, times have definitely changed. Like, I've seen people using all sorts of different platforms now. Like, I know Zoom, which we are recording our chat through, is also a really popular option. A lot of people are doing classes through Zoom as well. So it's like
Yeah,
a whole new world nowadays. So
I
everyone's
know. You
trying to
can
figure
reach
out.
anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Do you have any other parting words of wisdom that you'd want to share with people about yoga or being a yoga instructor, or just, I don't know, things managing life during a global pandemic?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think one call out just that this conversation kind of sparked in me is that once you go down that path, so to speak, of yoga instruction, or wanting to try out different types of yoga just as a person that might be interested in it, know that it kind of continuously grows, and a lot of times it grows in directions that you don't see coming. And sometimes you have to, as a yoga instructor, kind of reroute what you thought you are going to be doing in your offerings. And sometimes your interests change as well. So don't be afraid if that's what's happening in your life. That's what I've experienced personally, and I love to speak to and kind of encourage the growth throughout and beyond that, and be excited if that is happening. So just kind of continue to look into it and use yoga to supplement whatever you have going on in your life. It's always a good resource.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for being on the show today. So I'll be putting out some of the links in the description and the comments below. So we'll just sign off together as always. Deep breath in together. Deep breath out. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. Take care.